Writing a query letter is understandably a source of stress for many authors, but it's a necessary step in pursuing the traditional publishing process. If you're writing a query right now, you likely are worried about making sure that you're coming across as enthusiastic, professional, and of course that you represent your book really well and pitch it in a way that entices the agent. But sometimes certain things that you say in a query letter could inadvertently erode your credibility and come across in a way that might make the agent actually less inclined to work with you. As a professional book editor and former literary agency employee, I have evaluated hundreds of query letters over the course of my career and have compiled today a list of common mistakes that I see authors make. Specifically, I'm going to reveal 7 things you should never say in a query letter so that you can check your own query for any of this type of language and remove it so that you give yourself the best chances when reaching out to agents. If you are interested in the book publishing industry, if you're writing a book and trying to get published, I recommend subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. Every week, I either talk about the publishing industry, like in today's video, or I give some tips on how to improve your manuscript, especially if you're working on a novel. We have an amazing community of over 25,000 subscribers, and we would love to have you. Before we get going, it would mean a lot to me if you hit that thumbs up button. It really does help out my channel. Thank you so much. The first thing that you should never say in a query letter is that my book is going to become a bestseller. While your confidence in your book is certainly admirable, no one, not even your agent or your publishing house, can guarantee that your book is going to become a bestseller. So you making this claim in the query letter could come across as though you don't know how the industry works. You also don't want to give the agent the impression that you potentially have unrealistic expectations or grandiose visions for the book that might not come true. It could make the agent concerned to work with you because, after all, they don't want you to feel disappointed by the results of your publishing journey if you don't end up becoming a bestseller and you thought you would all along. Of course, your agent is going to want you to become a bestseller as well, because your success is their success. But this is not something you need to say in a query. It almost goes unsaid. Of course, you want to become a best-selling author if you're pursuing this, right? That said, nothing in publishing is certain, so it's really just best to leave this type of language out. Agents, of course, understand that you are confident in the book, otherwise you wouldn't be querying them to begin with. The next thing you never want to say in a query is, "My novel is not yet complete." But for fiction, agents will expect you to have a fully completed manuscript prior to querying. Now, some authors hope that they can get around this and avoid having to write the entire manuscript by first seeing if a literary agent likes the pitch of the book or likes the sample pages, which I understand because maybe you don't want to put in the time to write the entire book if agents don't like the idea. But this is unfortunately not going to work out for you. That's because once an agent likes your pitch in the query letter and your sample pages, the immediate next step is going to be for them to request to see the full manuscript. And it's not going to look good if you don't have that to present them. You need to have it ready to go. An agent is unfortunately not going to sign on a client on just a pitch and some sample pages for fiction. They need to evaluate the entire manuscript to see if you frankly have the chops to complete the whole novel, if you can execute on this idea. Now, there is one exception to the rule of needing to have a complete manuscript prior to querying, and that is if you are querying nonfiction, particularly more standard academic, nonfiction, or self-help, something like that. In these cases, you typically present a finished book proposal as well as sample chapters, and it is not necessary for you to complete the entire book prior to querying. But if you are writing fiction, if you have a novel, you definitely need to complete the entire manuscript first. The next thing you should never say in a query is that I'm willing to offer a higher commission rate. Some authors hope that they can catch a literary agent's attention and interest by saying that you are going to give them more than the standard 15% commission on your advance and royalties from your book deal. But the truth is that no reputable agent is going to take this. They are not going to deviate from that standard 15% commission, which is the norm in the industry. Offering them a higher commission rate is only going to end up looking unprofessional and almost seeming like you're trying to cut some shady backdoor business deal, and no reputable agent is going to want to engage in that way. So don't try to offer any type of alternative business plan to the agent in your query letter. The way that you would work together is them receiving 15% commission on your book deal. Before we move on to the next tip, I wanted to let you know about a free resource I have for my YouTube community. It is called my Story Self-Assessment Worksheet. And if you have a current work in progress, it's a fun, easy way to see your manuscript from a new perspective, try to figure out what's working well as areas you can improve on the next draft. Downloading it is also going to sign you up for my exclusive newsletter, where I publish interviews with publishing industry insiders and successfully published authors. And the newsletter has been growing amazingly and doing really well, so I don't want you to miss out on any of that. If you want to go straight to the newsletter, the link is also in the description. The next thing you never want to say in a query letter is, I know the manuscript needs some work, but agents will expect you to put in the work on the front end to make the manuscript as strong as it can possibly be prior to reaching out to them. While it is common to go through rounds of developmental editing with your agent to make sure the manuscript is in tip-top shape to appeal to publishing houses, you shouldn't highlight in your query that you know there are these big glaring issues in the manuscript, because that's going to just make the agent question why you haven't taken care of those issues yet if you know that they're there. Ultimately, you want to present your book very confidently and not alert the agent to any possible problems with it, because that's automatically going to make them question whether it and you are really ready for this next phase of your publishing journey. If you're questioning whether you're ready for a literary agent, I do have another video that goes into milestones to check off to make sure you are ready, so definitely check that out. The next thing you should never say in a query letter is, I would love to speak over the phone or in person. Unfortunately, agents are very strapped for time, and they simply don't have time to take meetings with authors who they have not expressed interest in representing yet. You will not have a phone or in-person meeting with any agent until they reach out to you saying that they would like to talk more about you and your book and your plans for publishing. This is ultimately something that you have to let the agent initiate. I also do not recommend calling an agency or agent out of the blue or showing up at the agency door in the hopes of stopping and speaking to this agent in person or over the phone. This could come off as a bit aggressive, and agents really want you to go through the standard query process, which is you sending them your materials and then them either rejecting the materials or expressing interest in speaking to you more about the project. So that's pretty much how it has to go. The next thing you should never say in a query is that I've loved writing since a young age. In the bio paragraph especially, I see authors wanting to describe what got them into writing, different stories maybe that inspired them in their youth. But that's ultimately really not necessary to include in the query letter and just clogs it up and makes it longer than necessary. Remember, this document should be as concise as possible. Of course, agents presume that you have a passion for writing, otherwise you wouldn't be doing this, right? And many authors, and many agents included, have this shared lifelong interest and passion for storytelling. So unless there is really something exceptional about how you got into writing, it is not necessary to mention in your bio. What is more compelling to mention is any specific writing credentials or experience you bring to the table, whether that is a creative writing degree, attendance at workshops or conferences, any previous publications, or any relevant work experience. And if you don't have any of that, that does not mean you cannot get an agent to represent you. In that case, I recommend just saying this is your debut book in your bio. The final thing that you should never say in a query letter is that my friends and family enjoyed the book. While it's certainly nice to get this positive feedback from friends and family, it's ultimately not going to hold any weight from an agent's perspective when reviewing your query. After all, it's quite common for friends and family to make vague praise comments about your book because they want to encourage you. Of course, they love you and they want to support you. And if they're not trained in providing editorial feedback, their input just likely isn't that helpful from a professional standpoint. And even if they did truly love the story, that's still not going to convince the agent of anything because they still need to evaluate the viability of this project from their professional view. The only time that I would recommend potentially mentioning someone's feedback on your book in your query letter is if you have a connection to a well-known or high-profile author and they did give you praise about it. Someone that the agent would recognize the name immediately that could be worth including. Otherwise, leave it out. I hope this video helped you understand what agents are really looking for in the query letter and some language that might give them pause and you should remove. Let me know in the comments if you're currently in the querying process, and if so, feel free to share how many queries you've sent out. I'd love to gauge where you are. And if you're looking for some more tips on things to avoid when querying, check out my video on querying faux pas that could turn off literary agents. Before you head out, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up button for my channel, hit that subscribe button to join this amazing community, and don't forget your free story self-assessment worksheet and my newsletter link in the description. Thanks so much for watching, and happy writing.